No alarms, no warning, just a quiet shoreline, calm water, and Russian sentries who expected another uneventful shift. But beneath that stillness, a strike package was already in motion. Neptune missiles hugging the curvature of the Earth, Ukrainian UAV swarms rising like static across the Black Sea, and one of Russia's most fortified ports about to be stripped open in real time. By sunrise, Novorossiysk, the $20 billion lifeline of Russian fuel logistics, would be burning, its S-400 silent, its command network blind, and 4 missiles fired from 600 kilometers away would rewrite what Moscow believed was untouchable. Everything begins with one fact. The attack ran for over an hour before anyone understood what was happening. November 14th, 2025. Shortly after midnight local time. The atmosphere along the Novorossiysk Gulf was routine. Russian conscripts rotated through watch posts, warehouse lights shimmered over cranes and moored tankers, and thermal cameras scanned a horizon they believed was secure. To them, this was the safest port in Russia after Moscow itself, but that assumption was built on one system, the S-400. 12 launchers, layered with Pantsir and Tor batteries, formed a defensive dome that Russian planners regarded as impenetrable. The port was larger than St. Petersburg and Murmansk, a logistical artery feeding oil exports, naval operations, and civilian shipping. Its protection was engineered to withstand Western cruise missile saturation, but it was never designed to withstand what was coming next. The first threat was not visible. It began far from the coastline, Odessa region, deep inside Ukrainian territory. Inside a pine-covered site, a single camouflage truck sat silent. Beneath its control console lay a red-covered switch, the kind used when decisions cannot be reversed. The non-commissioned officer in the driver's position paused before lifting that cover. Outside, engineers finalized environmental checks. Wind profile, sea-skimming route, intermediate GPS waypoints. Flight corridor minimized to a meter-level tolerance. On one laptop, thermal mapping of the port's defenses. S-400 clusters at Kuban Regiment, pump stations and tank farms at the Shashkaris terminal, blinked with confirmation signals. Inside each launch capsule was what the Kremlin feared most, the long-range land attack variant of the Neptune missile, carrying heavy warheads measured in hundreds of kilograms. 4 tubes rose vertically, extending taller than the truck itself. These missiles would have to travel nearly 1,000 kilometers total flight profile, Odessa to Black Sea vector, then into Novorossiysk. When the launch command came, it was short, with no poetry. Ready. The night cracked open with a deep mechanical roar. First capsule lid detonated outward, and a Neptune missile leapt skyward, booster igniting into a spear of orange light. A second followed, then a third, then a fourth. In under 15 seconds, the entire strike package was airborne, pivoting from vertical climb to low-altitude descent toward the sea. Their cruise phase stabilized at roughly 900 kilometers per hour. Subsonic, but fast enough that radar reaction time would be minimal if detection failed early. At that same moment, Russian operators east of Novorossiysk saw the first anomaly. Their radar screens, previously calm with civilian marine tracks and routine air activity, suddenly populated with dozens of unknown targets. Within seconds, dozens turned into hundreds. To the naked eye, it resembled a swarm. The alarm sounded. Crews responded as trained, classify, lock, fire. But they could not distinguish what they were seeing. Because what they were seeing were not missiles. They were decoy drones. Ukraine had launched FP-1 and FP-2 kamikaze UAVs directly into the radar lobes of the S-400 and its Nebo M and 96 N6 early warning systems. Their signatures were small, unstable, and intentionally chaotic. Flight paths shifted altitude, broke lock, reappeared. Algorithms struggled to prioritize. Engagement radars struggled to isolate them. The human eye had no reference to separate decoys from cruise missiles. And beneath that chaos, 4 Neptune missiles flew undetected, just meters above sea level. Radar theory became reality. The Earth's curvature blocked sightlines. The S-400 theoretically covers 400 kilometers, but radar cannot bend beyond the horizon. Anything flying below that curve is invisible until dangerously close. Ukraine had engineered the attack to exploit this exact physics limitation. The Neptune package climbed initially, then dove to sea-skimming depth as it approached the Black Sea. Its radar cross-section plummeted. It merged with ocean clutter. Every decoy drone overhead multiplied confusion. Russian officers reacted to what they could see. Large clusters, dense returns, what appeared to be the main threat. The training response activated. Fire control onto the tallest signature concentrations. Panzers began engaging. Tor systems joined. S-300 and S-400 missiles launched, bright trails cutting upward like white blades. Intercept explosions lit the sky. To inexperienced soldiers watching from port rooftops, it looked like a triumphant defense display, Russia shooting down wave after wave. But it was the opposite. Ukraine forced the best air defense Russia possesses to burn ammunition on cheap drones, corrupt its own radar picture, and leave low-altitude corridors undefended. While the decoys consumed interceptors, the real strike element advanced untouched. Only once they crossed the coastline did radar detect the Neptune silhouettes. By then, seconds from impact. The first two missiles targeted the Kuban Regiment S-400 cluster. As they passed over land, they briefly rose to clear elevation, activating IONR seekers. Thermal imagery instantly highlighted hot components: the spinning 96 N6 search radar, the rectangular 92 N6 engagement radar panel, and 4 S-400 launcher tubes glowing from residual heat. The missile software compared this image to its onboard template. Match confirmed. Trajectory corrected. No human in the loop. The first Neptune rose sharply, then dove into the center of that cluster. The detonation shattered the radar head from its mounting. The antenna was thrown vertically, breaking apart midair. Milliseconds later, heat triggered the warheads inside the ready-to-fire missiles stored below. A chain reaction cascaded across the hillside. 4 separate explosions erupted like sequential pillars of flame. Night sky turned white, then orange. Cameras from the port recorded the next impact. A flash, then delayed thunder. The second Neptune struck the second battery cluster near the 92 N6. The generators and launch tubes detonated next. Russian interceptors still streaked the air above, oblivious to the fact that their parent radar was gone. By dawn, satellite imagery confirmed the reality. At least 4 S-400 launchers destroyed. 2 96 N6 radars are gone. 2 92 N6 engagement arrays eliminated. The surviving launchers were intact physically but tactically useless. Blind, deaf, isolated. The shield was down. The next 2 Neptunes entered Novorossiysk without resistance. No active long-range radar coverage. Short-range air defense was still tunnel-focused on decoy swarms. The port's critical infrastructure lay exposed. The third missile locked onto the pumping station at Shashkaris terminal. From a thermal view, tank farms appeared as massive circular heat signatures. Pumping stations, smaller but hotter, stood like bright rectangles. At terminal approach, Neptune ascended slightly, then executed a near-vertical dive. Detonation occurred directly above the manifold controlling distribution and flow regulation. Shockwave traveled through pipeline networks. Control room systems were pulverized instantly. Electrical grid nodes collapsed. Fire spread inside the infrastructure like a pressure-fed arteries. Seconds later, the fourth Neptune struck a full storage tank. Its infrared seeker recognized the signature of stored fuel. Impact produced an eruption visible across the entire bay. A fireball rose, fed by hydrocarbons, reflecting off the water like a second sun. Turkish sailors filmed it, describing the scene as hellish. Their voices captured awe more than fear. 4 missiles from 600+ kilometers away had taken down the port that Russia believed was invulnerable. With air defenses crippled, a second UAV wave entered. These were not decoys, but lethal follow-on platforms. Some verified damage to the pump station. Some targeted the remaining tank structures. Others spread across internal logistics, container yards, auxiliary power, and control centers. Explosions multiplied in irregular intervals. One UAV landed directly atop the energy control hub. The blast triggered an emergency shutdown, but the earlier strike had already severed parts of the control network. Automated fail-safes failed mid-sequence. Half the port's safety systems never activated. Fire expanded uncontrollably. Tank yards ignited in secondary bursts. Shipping cranes stood silhouetted against flame pillars. At least one civilian vessel suffered damage from debris and overpressure shock. Reports confirmed 3 injured crew members. footage posted on social platforms by local workers drew global attention. Novorossiysk, a symbol of Russian industrial depth, was visibly burning. The Ministry of Defense issued the initial narrative: 66 Ukrainian drones shot down. The figure may have been technically accurate, but strategically irrelevant. The swarm did not need to survive, only distract. The real strike had already landed. The S-400 myth was no longer theoretical. It was broken on video from multiple angles, recorded by civilians and foreign sailors alike. The governor attempted to control messaging, claiming the situation was contained. Hours later, the city was forced into an official state of emergency. Independent Russian media confirmed the full lockdown of port zones. This was not a symbolic hit. It was a strategic breach. Neptune missiles neutralized Russia's strongest air defense system using physics, swarm saturation, and infrared terminal guidance. 4 warheads, 2 for radars and launchers, 2 for oil logistics, temporarily paralyzed the Black Sea fuel distribution chain. Air defense assets worth hundreds of millions were disabled in minutes. The port and tank farms, valued in the tens of billions, were left burning, smoking into the following day. Ukraine did not need hypersonics. It needed an understanding of radar horizon, decoys, routing, and thermal targeting. And it needed what it had: long-range Neptunes with heavy payloads. By combining sea-skimming cruise missiles with drone saturation, Ukraine overcame a dome that Russia considered ironclad. The operation was clean, structured, and sequenced. First, blind the radar. Second, ignite the fuel. Third, exploit the chaos with UAV follow-through. This was modern warfare executed through precision, not volume. 4 missiles altered a strategic coastline. And the echo left behind may be more dangerous than the strike itself, because once an untouchable target is proven vulnerable, nothing protected by similar systems is safe again.